The vacuum hummed low as Amara gently guided it across the marbled floor of the Grand Lexington's executive lounge. It was early, before breakfast, before noise, before she had to disappear again behind cleaning carts and white stairs. Her gray housekeeping uniform was crisp, her name tag dull with age. Just another morning in New York. Behind her, the tall glass doors opened with a faint hiss. She didn't turn. Years in this place had taught her not to. Black and unseen. That's how they liked her. She kept her head down, adjusting a magazine on the coffee table with quiet precision. Footsteps echoed, sharp and expensive. 2, 3, 4 pairs. Men's shoes. Leather. They walked with the confidence of men who owned silence. Then something hit the floor. A folder. Papers spilled. Amara instinctively turned and bent down. Entschuldigen Sie, Sie haben das fallen lassen. The words left her lips without hesitation, her voice calm, fluent, and full. German. Everything stopped. The air turned still. One of the men turned sharply. Tall, silver at the temples, coat tailored to perfection. His gaze locked on hers. Amara realized who it was. Eric Reinhardt, the billionaire. The man who owned the entire Lexington chain. The man whose name no one dared speak above a whisper. He stared at her like he'd seen a ghost speak. His assistants froze behind him, unsure what had just happened. One of them blinked, confused. Another reached for the folder, but Eric raised his hand slightly. His eyes hadn't left her. "You speak German?" he asked, his voice clipped, European, controlled. Amara hesitated for half a breath. "Yes, sir." His stare lingered a moment longer. Then, without a word, he turned, picked up the folder himself, and walked away. His assistants followed, glancing once over their shoulders. Silence returned. Amara stood still, her heart pounding, hands slightly trembling. Her mind raced. Did I say too much? Did I just make a mistake? Across the lounge, a white front desk supervisor stared at her, mouth slightly open, like she'd just heard a dog sing opera. Amara quickly looked away and went back to the vacuum. Her hands steady now, her face calm. But nothing felt the same. Something had shifted. Something had been seen. And she didn't know whether it would destroy her, or finally set her free. The train doors opened with a rusty screech, and Amara stepped out into the dim underground station in Brooklyn, the same place she'd called home for years. Her feet moved automatically up the cracked stairs, past graffiti-covered walls, past people who, like her, had learned to disappear inside exhaustion. She unlocked the door to her small basement apartment. Inside, it smelled faintly of bleach and steamed rice, a folded cot near the radiator, a taped photo of her father on the fridge, half faded, her sanctuary, her prison. She dropped her bag, peeled off her uniform, and headed straight for the desk in the corner. The lamp was already on. Her German textbook lay open, pages creased, underlined, and loved. A cheap headset rested beside it, and waiting in her inbox, an audio file from a language partner in Frankfurt. Native speakers. She listened. Repeated. Corrected. Repeated again. Every single night. This was her ritual. No matter how drained her body was, her mind had learned to fight. She spoke to no one about it. No one cared what a hotel cleaner did after her shift. But it mattered to her. It was for her father, who once dreamed of taking his daughter to Berlin, who used to call her "my little professor," as they listened to Deutsche Welle radio in their old car in Mississippi. before the march, before the cops, before the fire that took everything. When he died, everything around her cracked. Scholarships disappeared. Promises dissolved. She'd finished her degree while working double shifts. German, French, even some Mandarin. But nobody in Manhattan wanted a linguistics graduate with black skin and a Southern accent. So she pushed a cart through hallways where nobody asked her name. And still, every night, she studied. The next morning, she ironed her uniform until it looked like new. She packed leftover rice and cabbage rolls into a container and checked her shoes for scuffs. She walked the 8 blocks to the train. The morning cold bit at her cheeks, but her spine was straight. The Grand Lexington glowed like it always did, imposing, indifferent. She entered through the back, through service corridors painted a dull beige, past signs that read, "Staff only," and "Security check required." She nodded to the security guard. He didn't look up. In the locker room, other cleaners laughed quietly about their weekends, cheap TV, and sore knees. No one noticed Amara moving silently to her locker. She changed, tied her shoes, pulled her hair back, and replayed yesterday in her mind. That moment, the folder. The way Eric Reinhardt had looked at her like she wasn't supposed to exist. A black woman speaking German fluently in a space where even English felt borrowed. She hadn't told anyone, not even Shonda, the only other black woman on staff who ever made her laugh. Not because she didn't trust her, just because she didn't trust Hope. As she rolled her cart back toward the 5th floor, everything looked the same. But it didn't feel the same. The hallway lights flickered like always. The smell of cinnamon rolls from the breakfast lounge drifted past. A white concierge smiled at a guest, then glanced at Amara like she was part of the wallpaper. She kept walking. Her hand brushed the vacuum's handle. Her ears caught snippets of French behind her. A tourist couple. She understood every word. She didn't turn around. This was what it meant to be her. To be gifted and invisible. To be fluent and ignored. To be excellent and still mistaken for background noise. As she reached the elevator, the doors slid open. 2 white employees in suits were inside. They didn't move. One looked at her badge, then stepped forward as if to say, "Maybe take the next one." Amara stared for a second, then stepped in anyway. The silence was heavy. Her shoulders were square. When the doors closed, she said nothing. But in her mind, her father whispered the same words he used to say on rough days. "You ain't gotta raise your voice to prove you're loud enough." She exhaled. One floor at a time, one breath at a time, even if no one saw it yet. She was rising. Amara was refilling the towel shelf in the women's spa locker room when her supervisor appeared in the doorway with a strange look on her face. "Amara," she said, voice flat, "you need to go to Human Resources. Now." Amara froze mid-fold. "Why?" she asked quietly. The supervisor shrugged. Didn't say, just go. For a split second, Amara's legs didn't move. HR never calls cleaning staff unless someone filed a complaint. She scanned her mind. Had she done anything? Said something? That German slip-up yesterday? Could someone have reported it? She placed the last towel gently on the shelf, wiped her hands, and walked out. Her shoes tapped softly down the service corridor, but her heartbeat was thunder in her chest. She passed the uniform check, the dry storage room, the back elevator. Every employee she passed seemed to glance at her like they knew something she didn't. When she reached the HR office on the 2nd floor, the receptionist gave her a quick nod and said, You can go right in. That was the second red flag. Nobody goes right in. The door creaked as she opened it. Mrs. Green, the hotel's HR director, sat behind her desk. A silver brooch on her blazer. Impeccable nails. Lips tight. "Have a seat, Amara," she said. Amara sat, back straight, palms on her thighs. Mrs. Green folded her hands. "We received an unusual request this morning." Amara didn't breathe. "Mr. Reinhardt, our executive chairman, has asked that you be reassigned, effective immediately." Amara blinked. What?" Mrs. Green slid a folder across the desk. "He's created a new role. For you. Assistant to the International Guest Relations Director." The words didn't compute. "You'll be assisting with high-profile clients, international communication, and special services. You'll attend meetings, translate where needed, coordinate cultural expectations." Amara's throat went dry. I think there's a misunderstanding. I'm just in housekeeping." Mrs. Green's expression didn't change. "Mr. Reinhardt was very specific. He overheard you speaking fluent German. He believes your skills are being underutilized. And, frankly, I agree." Amara couldn't speak. "The position starts today. You'll report to floor 37 after lunch. A uniform has already been ordered. Your pay grade has tripled." "Tripled?" Mrs. Green leaned back slightly. "Amara, are you okay?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. Just surprised." "Understandable. One more thing," she added. "I suggest you be prepared. This transition will attract attention." It already had. As Amara stepped out of HR and back into the hallway, she felt eyes. Every employee at the front desk stopped talking. One concierge tilted his head and whispered something to the bellhop. By the time she reached the staff elevators, someone from housekeeping passed her and muttered, "Fancy now, huh?" She said nothing. She got into the elevator alone and pressed one to go back to her locker. The ride felt endless. Inside the locker room, she moved like muscle memory. Changed out of her housekeeping uniform, folded it neatly, tucked it into her duffel bag. On the bench next to her, someone had left a note card. No name. Just one sentence scribbled in black ink. "You really think you belong with them?" She held it for a moment, then tore it in half, then in half again, then in half again, until the pieces felt small enough to disappear. She threw them away. Outside the locker room, she passed the hallway she used to mop every morning. The same gold-rimmed mirrors, the same chandeliers. But everything looked different now. Not because the hotel had changed, but because someone had finally looked up. Someone who mattered. Her father used to say, "Don't wait for the door to open. Speak so loud they build you a new one." She never imagined it would come from a German billionaire in an Armani coat. She straightened her shoulders. Today, she wouldn't carry the vacuum. Today, she would carry her name. The elevator to floor 37 opened with a soft ding. Amara stepped out into a space she had never seen before. Polished glass walls, fresh orchids, and silence thick enough to taste. There were no cleaning carts here, no linen smell, just money and control. A woman in a sharp blazer approached. "Ms. Roberts?" the woman said. Amara hesitated. "Yes, this way. Mr. Reinhardt is expecting you." She followed the woman down a hallway of frosted panels and sleek silver lighting. Every step of her shoes felt like thunder against the floors. They stopped at a matte black door. The woman knocked once, then opened it and gestured her inside. Eric Reinhardt stood alone by the window, overlooking the Manhattan skyline. His posture was perfect, one hand in his pocket. The other held a phone, though he wasn't speaking. Just watching the city like it was a chessboard, and he owned every piece. He turned slowly when he heard her. "Miss Roberts," he said, setting the phone down. "Good afternoon, sir." "You came? That's good." She stepped closer, but stopped at the edge of the rug. "This must be confusing," he added, watching her. She nodded. "Yes, sir." He motioned to the chair across from him. "Sit, please." She sat, stiff and upright. "I'll be direct," he said. "You surprised me." Amara stayed silent. "I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not a hotel cleaner, to speak flawless German in the middle of my lounge." "I didn't mean to interrupt," she replied softly. "You didn't," he said, cutting her off gently. "You exposed something I've been missing." She glanced down, unsure how to reply. "Why housekeeping?" he asked. "I couldn't get interviews anywhere else." "But you have degrees, certifications, fluency in multiple languages. Why this?" She looked up. Her voice didn't shake. "Because people see my skin before they hear my voice." He blinked. "Even with a resume in German, French, and English," she continued, "they still ask if I'm applying for janitorial work." A heavy silence passed. Then Eric leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the desk. "Do you know what I saw when you spoke yesterday?" "No, sir." "I saw the person I wish I'd hired 10 years ago. Someone who didn't need to be told how to carry herself. Someone who didn't flinch when power looked her in the eye." Amara didn't move. "Tell me, honestly," he said, "if I hadn't overheard you, would you still be cleaning floors next week?" She didn't blink. "Yes." He nodded slowly. "That's what bothers me." He stood and walked over to a drawer, pulling out a slim file. "I didn't create this position for a diversity quota. I created it because I realized, while everyone else in this building was performing, you were practicing." He laid the file down in front of her. "You'll assist me directly this week. Not just with language, but with reading the room, understanding our guests, interpreting more than just words. This afternoon, we're meeting with German investors. They're skeptical, distrustful. But if you can help navigate that, if you can read them better than my board, then I'll know I was right about you." Her throat tightened. "What if I'm not ready?" He looked at her, calm, unreadable. "I don't need perfection. I need instinct. The kind of instinct it takes to know when to speak German in a silent room full of power." Her breath caught. "I'm not hiring you for etiquette," he said. "I'm hiring you because you don't flinch." A long pause followed. Then she reached for the folder, opened it. Inside were the investor bios, language cues, cultural expectations. One of them had a known allergy to seafood. Another preferred metaphors about architecture when discussing strategy. Detailed, specific. Not just translation, but understanding. She looked up. "When do we start?" He smiled slightly. "In 1 hour." She stood up, holding the folder tightly. As she walked to the door, he said quietly, "Amara." She turned. "This building isn't built for people like us. You know that." She nodded. "I know." "Then let's shake it a little." And with that, she left. her steps firmer now. Not because she had something to prove, but because someone had finally called her by name and listened. The boardroom on floor 38 was made of glass and silence. Amara stood near the far end, folder in hand, trying to slow her heartbeat as the German investors filed in. 3 men in dark suits, sharp eyes, and expressions that had been trained to judge without blinking. They shook hands with Eric Reinhardt first, then glanced at Amara. One of them gave her a polite nod. The others looked past her. She didn't flinch. Eric gestured toward her. "This is Ms. Roberts. She'll be joining us as liaison." One of the men raised an eyebrow. "She speaks German?" Before Eric could reply, Amara stepped forward and answered in their dialect. "Fließend. Ich bin hier, sicherzustellen, dass es keine Missverständnisse gibt." "Fluent. I'm here to ensure there are no misunderstandings." The room paused. Then something shifted. The men nodded. One of them smiled slightly. The meeting began. Eric led the presentation. Slides lit the walls, numbers, charts, strategic growth. But every few minutes, someone would ask a question. In German, sometimes laced with cultural idioms Amara recognized instantly. She translated, not just the words, the meaning. When one investor made a sarcastic remark about American optimism, she returned a quiet jab in perfect regional phrasing that made him laugh. Halfway through, one of the men leaned over to whisper to the other. They started directing questions to her, subtle ones, tone checks, testing her awareness. She passed every single one. At one point, an investor asked about long-term hospitality integration between cultures. Before Eric could answer, Amara stepped in, carefully, tactfully. "The German expectation of hospitality is built on predictability," she said. "The American model thrives on friendliness. Integration doesn't mean combining, it means respecting both." The investor smiled and nodded. Outside the glass walls, staff had started to gather. They weren't supposed to be there, but word had spread. People wanted to see. Amara Roberts, the cleaner, was standing at the head of a table worth $50 million, translating, interpreting, holding ground, and the men in suits were listening. After an hour, the lead investor stood. "This has been surprisingly productive." Eric smiled. "Thanks to Amara." The man turned to her. "You ever think of working in Berlin?" She replied without missing a beat. "Only if the coffee's stronger." They all laughed. Meeting adjourned. As the men left, Eric stayed behind with her. He leaned against the table and crossed his arms. "You saved that entire meeting." "I didn't do much," she said. He tilted his head. "That's what makes it dangerous. You don't even realize the power in what you just did." She looked down. He added quieter now, "That man, the one who asked about Berlin, hasn't smiled at anyone in 2 years. I've watched CEOs stumble in front of him. And you? You got him talking about espresso." "I was just speaking his language." "No, Amara, you were speaking his culture." Silence passed. "You ever done this before?" he asked. "Only in textbooks," she replied. "Well, consider today your graduation." He stepped toward the window, watching the traffic far below. "I've built this company thinking I needed to look for talent in all the usual places. Ivy League, consultants, referrals." He turned back toward her. "Turns out the smartest person in this building was mopping floors." She didn't know what to say. Before she could reply, there was a knock at the glass door. One of the receptionists entered, flustered. "Sorry, Mr. Reinhardt, but There's a situation on the lobby floor. What kind of situation? The woman hesitated. Some of the staff are saying she's getting special treatment. There's talk. Some people are upset. Amara's spine straightened. Of course. Eric turned to her. You expected this, didn't you? Yes, she said simply. Do you want me to handle it? No, she said. I'll show them. Not with words, with work. He watched her for a long moment, then nodded once. Good. She walked out of the boardroom with her head held high, past the same staff who once didn't see her. Now they looked at her, some with awe, some with envy, some with that cold, quiet hate that only shows up when a black woman rises in a place she wasn't supposed to. She didn't flinch. She didn't slow down. She was here now, and they were going to have to get used to it. Black cleaner promoted after billionaire overhears her speak German. From janitor to boardroom, who is Amara Roberts? Diversity or disruption? Staff at Lexington react to sudden promotion. They spread fast. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Local news channels picked it up. One morning show called it The Modern American Cinderella Story. But behind the comments and emojis were the real conversations, the ones Amara heard when no one thought she was listening. Must be nice getting a shortcut to the top. She probably slept her way in. She's a diversity hire. It's all for the cameras. It didn't matter that she translated flawlessly in 3 languages. It didn't matter that she saved a multi-million-dollar deal. Some people just didn't want to believe a black woman had earned it. Eric warned her. He offered her time off. She refused. Every morning she walked in wearing her new name tag, International Guest Relations Liaison, and ignored the stares, the whispers, the fake smiles. She had work to do. But the sabotage came anyway. One afternoon, right before a high-level investor pitch, she opened her briefing folder and froze. The presentation slides were wrong. Her notes were gone. The financial forecast had been replaced with a mock slideshow titled, How to Sweep Your Way into Corporate Favor. She didn't blink. She closed the folder, then walked to the front desk, printed fresh copies, and rewrote her notes from memory in 10 minutes. By the time the meeting started, she was composed. Not a word said, not a crack shown. Afterward, she found the folder in the trash near the break room. No names, no fingerprints, just proof that not everyone had clapped when she rose. That evening, she stayed late. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply pulled out her laptop, rebuilt the slide deck from scratch, and sent a thank you email to Eric for trusting her with the details. She added one line at the bottom. Some people throw stones. I build from them. The next day, Eric stopped her in the hallway. I read your email. She nodded. Do you want me to launch an internal investigation? No. Why not? Because I already won. That day, she led the final negotiations for a global partnership with one of the most exclusive hospitality firms in Europe. 10 men, 3 hours, 4 different languages. She didn't miss a beat. She adjusted phrasing, explained cultural metaphors. She even caught a mistranslated phrase in a legal clause that would have cost them $500,000. By the end of the meeting, one of the European partners turned to Eric and said, She's the smartest person in this room. He smiled. That's why she's not just here. She's leading this. Later that afternoon, Eric held a press conference. The ballroom was packed. Media, staff, executives. Cameras flashed as he stepped to the podium. I built Lexington to represent excellence, but I've learned that excellence is often hidden in the people we overlook. That ends today." He turned toward Amara. "This is Amara Roberts, our new Director of Global Guest Experience." Gasps. Applause. Amara stepped forward in a navy suit, calm as stone. Reporters asked questions. One of them tried to corner her. Some critics say this promotion is symbolic, that you're a token hire. She smiled. Software controlled. "If I'm symbolic," she said, "then I'm proof that systems built to overlook people like me are finally being challenged." Another reporter raised a hand. "How do you respond to those who say you didn't earn it?" "I respond in fluent German, French, and Mandarin, and then I let my work speak louder than their doubts." That quote hit Twitter before she left the stage. Within an hour, it was viral. Let her work. Fluent, not favored. Amara Roberts. But inside the crowd, past the cameras and press, stood a woman in an old housekeeping uniform, watching silently. It was Shonda. They locked eyes, and for the first time in a long time, Amara smiled for real. She wasn't just surviving now. She was seen. She was trusted. She was winning, without changing who she was. The air at the cemetery was still. Cool wind moved through the sycamore trees, brushing across the tops of weathered headstones. Amara stood alone near a modest granite marker that read, "Benjamin Roberts, father, dreamer, fighter." She knelt slowly. From her blazer pocket, she pulled out a laminated business card and laid it gently on the grave. Amara Roberts, Director of Global Guest Experience. The Lexington Group. "I made it, Daddy," she whispered. "Just like you said I would." Her voice broke on the last word. Not because she felt small, but because, for the first time in her life, she felt complete. She stayed there a long time. No cameras, no applause. Just the silence of the man who once told her she could be anything, even when the world told him she was just a black girl with too many books and too little chance. That night, back in Manhattan, the Lexington was lit up like a monument. Amara walked the hallways not as staff, but as leadership. She passed by rooms she used to clean, lounges she once vacuumed in silence. Now, those same spaces opened when she walked in. People rose, people noticed, people listened. But she didn't let it change her. She still carried her own folders, still reviewed every detail before a meeting, still called the cleaning team by name, and meant it. One evening, Eric found her standing outside the rooftop terrace, arms folded as she stared at the city skyline. "Penny for your thoughts?" he said. She smiled. "I was just thinking about how fast everything happened." "It's not fast," he said. "You were just overdue." They stood side by side, not as boss and employee, but as equals who had weathered something together. "You still have critics," he added. "You still have eyes watching you, waiting to say it was all luck." "I know." "Does it bother you?" She paused. "No," she said, "because when I was invisible, they didn't see me. And now that I'm rising, they still don't. They see their fear, not my worth." He nodded. A few seconds of silence passed before he reached into his coat pocket and handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "A letter from the Emperor Group. They've invited you to lead training for our European rollout in Amsterdam." She opened the envelope and scanned the embossed invitation. "Me?" "You," he said, "because they've asked for you by name." She let out a slow breath. "That's not a job, Eric." That's a stage. Then take it, he said, and stand on it like you built it. Months later, a video went viral from Amsterdam. Amara, in front of a full conference room, teaching multilingual staff how to bridge cultures, not just with language, but with empathy. She quoted her father, spoke about her first job cleaning floors, and ended with one line that made headlines across business blogs. I wasn't promoted because I spoke German. I was promoted because I never stopped speaking, even when no one listened. That same week, she was featured in Forbes Black Voices and BBC World Focus as one of the 25 women redefining leadership. But none of that mattered as much as what happened next. The Lexington Group announced a new training and hiring initiative called the Roberts Program, aimed at identifying overlooked talent from underrepresented communities. Language students, single parents, former custodial staff, veterans, immigrants. Amara personally reviewed every application. She chose candidates not by the paper they brought, but by the fire in their voice when they spoke. And every time someone asked how it all started, she smiled and replied, "It started with a folder, a sentence in German, and someone who finally stopped to listen." She never asked to be a symbol. But when they handed her the mic, she didn't flinch. She spoke, in every language she knew, and let the world finally hear what had always been there: a black woman, with brilliance in her blood, and nothing left to prove.